What's up, guys? Welcome back to Chainless TV. We got a wet, nasty criterium to go through today. This is the Land Park Crit, my hometown circuit. I live right across the street. I'm super spoiled. And this is the second time we race on this course. The first being Cal Aggie, which is our season opener in January. And of course, the weather was beautiful that day. And here we are in March, almost in spring, and it is god awful. But how do you guys feel about racing in the wet? I know a crit in the wet on paper sounds like a terrible idea, but my own personal experience is I've found that there are actually fewer crashes on these nasty days. I think people just take the corners super carefully. We were squeezing a ton of brake through that technical chicane. My usual preparation for a wet race is just to drop my tire pressure about 10 psi and just remind myself to avoid the white paint and the road markings. I think we've all watched cycling where someone's crashed on the wet white paint. And usually it's fine, you know. I think people, are just more cautious, and that keeps everyone probably a little bit more safe than even the dry days. So with this video, I really want to get straight to the point and maybe spend some extra time going through the sprint with a fine-tooth comb. I made one very bad error, then I think we also made maybe a slight team error that really cost us. So hopefully in breaking this down, you'll recognize in your own races how to not make these mistakes. So just to catch you guys up, the way the race played out was pretty simple. Mike's Bikes was the largest team. They had 7 strong dudes. So we knew they would probably want to control and then lead things out at the end. And basically they let a small break of, I believe, 4 go right at the start. And then they pretty much just paced the entire race and dragged around the field at a pretty good clip and kept that break close. My team had 5 guys. We had myself, Matt, Zach, Travis, and also Brian, who had his GoPros running. So we'll get 2 perspectives in this video. And our plan was to basically bank on Mike's wearing themselves out, controlling, and then hopefully have our lead out train overtake theirs in the last lap and drop me off with 200 meters to go, and I sprint for the win. I wanted to let you guys know that I'm working on a video about strategies that worked for me and I know work in the lower categories, because obviously there's most likely not going to be a Mike's Bikes controlling things and allowing you to do a strategy like I just outlined. So keep an eye out for that, and maybe subscribe if you haven't and that sounds interesting to you. But back to this. So we did a pretty good job conserving energy. The one call I made during the race was to move up and ride behind the Mike's Bikes train. The reason for this is it wasn't really a day to tail gun, you know, it being wet and kind of sketchy out there. And being in the middle of the field, you know, in the scrum also takes a lot of energy. So I tried my best to kind of plant myself at the end of the Mike's Bikes train. And I think one thing to think about if you're gonna do this, have maybe your sprinter or the person that you want saving the most energy in that first position right after the controlling team's train. Once I did that, it was great. You know, I was probably averaging like 210 watts, and I wasn't trying to, you know, interfere with the Mike's Bikes chase or anything like that. You know, they were doing the controlling, which is a huge task, and they did a great job of it, you know. And this is what Echelon and the bigger crit teams do. It's even what the, you know, World Tour teams do. They usually let an early break go and then control things. So I was not going to, you know, get in the way of a team doing that, because it makes everything safer and just more predictable. Oh, and by the way, the reason I have the background music going is because when the GoPro microphones get wet, they sound like this. So I thought I would spare you all that. And my rear camera actually is gonna give up here. It actually got wet. It got wet and froze. So yeah, action cameras, GoPros, come on. Like, it's not like I'm dunking this underwater at like 50 meters. It would be amazing if everyone just let me ride in that spot right behind the Mike's Bikes train, but of course everyone wants that spot, and with about 10 minutes left in the race, I started to get swarmed more and more. The break was still away at this point, but the gap was starting to come down. It's just really hard to stay away basically the entire race, especially when a strong team is chasing you down. I think we caught them with like 3 to go. That's actually us catching them right now, and we have about 3.5 laps to go. So props to the Mike's Bikes guys, really good control. And I'm liking my position right here. You know, I have my teammates all around me, and like I've said in previous videos, that's basically the most important thing, is group up with your teammates in the closing laps, and you're going to be able to do a lot more. We are a little bit far back, but our plan going into this was to kind of leave things late and overtake as late as possible. You know, we were thinking like a last lap type thing. I think that is a little risky. Maybe in future races, we'll try to take the front with like 2 to go, but you leave yourself open to burning your guys out because the speed is going to increase huge for those last 2 laps. You know, it's usually maybe like a 26-27 mile an hour average, but the last 2 laps are going to be 30, and that takes a lot of energy. Okay, so first big mistake for me. So we were all grouped together and I start losing my teammates' wheels. It was kind of this awkward thing where I was trying to let my teammate Zach right there through, and this is completely my fault. I can't use that as an excuse, but I start losing wheels, and you can see my teammates are up there on the left, and I'm just getting swarmed, and I've completely lost my lead out train. So we're at like a pretty pivotal moment in the race, so I have to suck it up and do this effort here to move back up. And it's still a problem because my teammates are on the left and now I'm on the right, so we're still disconnected even though I'm at the same kind of level in the field. All right, we got 2 to go. I was able to link back up with my teammates. That's Brian, Matt, and Travis in front of me. And like I said, the speed is getting high and moving up is starting to take in that, you know, 600 to 700 watt range. So you have to be pretty strategic. And I feel myself getting swarmed here, and I yell at the guys to start moving up. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, man, is Mike Spikes actually going to have enough lead out guys? Because I think they only had 3 or 4 at this point. They were starting to peel off. And one slight mistake, and maybe this is my fault, but when Travis moves up, he kind of moves himself into optimal position, and I lose this wheel here, and this is pretty bad. But he moves himself in kind of the position that I was hoping to be in, and I guess he would have had to basically move himself even with the Mike Spikes train, maybe even a little bit further to actually get the tail me where I want to be. So luckily through the turns, I'm able to get that spot back and regain Brian's wheel, but this is starting to take energy, you know, you only have so many bullets in the last few minutes of a race. And I know I haven't mentioned it, but take a look at those wind arrows that I put in the map. So through this section, the wind is actually blowing us towards the right, and the right hand side is the sheltered side. So if you want to move up here, you should move up on the right. So that's what I look like going into bell lap of a crit. But all right, let's break down this last lap. Let's talk about that pivotal mistake that I've mentioned a few times. So it's not the shortest lap for this land park circuit, so I'm actually not super concerned with being this far back. And like I said, it looks like Mike's might be running out of lead out guys. And at this point, I'm thinking about who's around me. So I have Jeff from Performance and a couple Performance guys around me. And I know that Nick from Ride Bikes is on my wheel probably, and he is a very good sprinter. All right, so what we talked about before the race was to hopefully lead through the technical section in the final lap, and Travis is going for it. He's trying to win that race for the entrance of that technical section, and I think the problem with that is we should have recognized that Mike Spikes was running out of lead out guys, and we probably should have just left them on the front out to dry. You know, Ryan and Sean was their kind of designated last man and sprinter, and those guys don't need any help, and Travis at this point is kind of helping them. I think maybe if Matt followed Travis and we kind of took that lead out role, then things could have been different, but he sort of waited, and what happened here is I get shuffled back, and I'm yelling at Brian, who's on my right there, that we have to move up, we have to go, you got it? And this is the start of my big mistake. So I'm not on Brian's wheel, and don't get me wrong, there is this kind of art to sprinting where you leave your teammate's wheel in order to get a better wheel, and I totally get it wrong here. So this is the big mistake. So I asked Brian to move me up, and for whatever inexplicable reason, I don't follow him. And this was just like so dumb because I told you about those wind arrows. So I'm in the wind here, and I'm coming up on Matt's wheel, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is good, but I'm on the outside. Brian had just done this big effort to move me up, and it would have been perfect if I followed him, but I'm on the outside and I get pushed wide, and I have to take a moment to like not get pushed into the gutter, and I lose like 15 yards there. And I start my sprint, and all these bullets that I've spent are starting to really add up. And Ryan had just done a beast mode effort to drop Sean off, and he's sprinting on the left there, the shortest possible path, and I'm fading like no other. So I roll in for third. That's Nick from Ride Bikes. He passed me like I was standing still for second. And Sean, the Wonder Kid, takes another W. Super congrats to him. What a beastly ride. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this sprint breakdown. Let me know if you enjoy like this type of thing where I just really hone in on the end and kind of skip the whole how I conserved energy type thing. Thank you to my teammates for working super hard for me, and thank you to Brian for giving me his GoPro footage. That was pretty cool to see the second perspective. Let me know in the comments what you think. Did I include all the mistakes that you saw? Did I make any other? You know, sprinting is tough, and I've gotten a lot better at it, but obviously there's still a lot for me to learn. And yeah, I appreciate y'all subscribing and commenting, and see you in the next one.